Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, joined here by criminal defense attorney Norman Williams. We're going to break down the biggest live trials and legal stories in the news today. A lot happening across the country, so let's get started. What a strategy it was for the prosecution to finish their case with such a strong witness, Norman. I mean, she said she doesn't see it as choking, but a seizure caused by a blunt force impact right to the abdomen about an hour before. Your thoughts as we saw that?
No, it's devastating to the defense. It's amazing. All of the medical witnesses say that there was no obstruction of the airway, no evidence of choking. But to say that the actions of Layla really describe a seizure or a child going into shock, and then just to open her up and see that there's internal bleeding, to see that there are several lacerated organs, it's a lot.
It's a bombshell. It's a bombshell that we heard in that courtroom. Now, what's happening right now is we are live in the Rosenbaum case. The defense is continuing on, putting on their witnesses. This is Brandy Willis. This is Millie's foster care case manager. Remember, Millie is the sister of Layla. She, too, is an alleged victim in this case, that she was abused by the Rosenbaums. Before we go live, I do want to let you know, if you want to follow the Grant Amato case, that's currently live on lawandcrime.com. We're going to go here on the network live into Rosenbaum. Okay, now it's time to talk about what the defense is going to be doing. I've been anticipating this because of how strong the prosecution's case is. They've been calling witnesses that know the Rosenbaums, have spent time with the Rosenbaums. We heard from Joseph's mother. They haven't observed abuse. They haven't observed these injuries. We're moving now into a different area. Where are they going? What have they done so far? How are they doing?
I think the defense is trying to show that, but for what happened to Layla, no one had any feelings or thoughts that the Rosenbaums were abusive, that they were beating on these girls, that there was anything wrong.
Does that work, though? Because we just talked about the autopsy. Those injuries don't come out of nowhere. Are they accidents? Is it just something that happened? You tell me.
Right, it doesn't sound accidental. I think lacerated pancreases are common in car accidents, but to think that someone could punch a child that hard to mimic what happens in a car accident it's outrageous.
You're talking about a car accident. The defense is saying this was resuscitation efforts gone bad. Something's maybe not adding up. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to jump live. A lot happening here on Law and Crime. Stay tuned. Okay, so let's break this down right now. We have somebody that knows Jennifer Rosenbaum very well, knew her since she was 12 years old. The impact of her statements to this jury, it's a good defense witness.
That's a very good defense witness. I mean, she's known her for years. She said she would interact with her during milestones like graduations and things like that. And one thing that she said about Layla that I think will help the defense, that Layla was rambunctious, that her movements were so much and there were so many objects in the room that she didn't feel comfortable staying seated in her own chair, that she sat down on the floor with the two girls. And I think the defense is going to be able to use that. And
look, they're trying to raise reasonable doubt here, and they're trying to say that these injuries, they're caused by two girls that were running around, and they could explain away Jennifer's words and her behavior for why she didn't want to have conversations with, Tessa all the time, and why, she said that Layla was in gymnastics when she really wasn't. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll jump live and break it all down. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So we were just live in the Rosenbaum trial. The Grant Amato trial is currently live. You can go to lawandcrime.com to watch that. Also, Robert Mueller is testifying in front of the House Judiciary Committee. You can go to lawandcrime.com to follow that as well. We're going to stick with Rosenbaum, focus on this case. And now, Norman, we just saw the testimony of Sandra Gravely, this group home employee, again, knew Jennifer since she was 12 years old, a young girl herself, and talking about her interactions, her life with her, and she never observed any abuse, didn't observe any of these kinds of injuries. Really good witness for the defense, but under cross-examination, they were seeming to suggest that perhaps she didn't really see Millie and Layla all that much. How do you think they did at poking holes in her testimony?
I mean, that's important. Not seeing the girls on a regular basis definitely lessens her ability to report on their condition. But you would also think, though, that on the random moments that she would have interactions with the children, that she would have seen something. And if she's been exposed to Jessica for so many years, you would think that behaviors that could lead towards Jennifer,
yes,
that could lead towards abuse or things like that would have been apparent. Something would have shown.
Do you think the defense is going to move forward with some medical testimony and state, because I feel like they need it. They need someone to come forward and say these injuries can in fact be caused by grossly improper CPR efforts.
They do, but I don't think they're going to find someone that's going to say that, or they're not going to find anyone who's going to have any credibility.
That seems to be the common thing. Joseph Scott Morgan said the same thing. They might be able to find somebody, but maybe not somebody who's credible. Look, we're just waiting to see what the defense is doing. They've done a really good job at cross-examining the state's witnesses, so don't count them out yet. It's an interesting back and forth. Look, as we wait to go live, let's recap some other important testimony that you may have missed. We talked about the forensic pathologist, really notable witness, but let's talk about somebody that really stuck out for us because I've never seen a witness testify like this before. A 7-year-old girl. Layla's sister, Millie, took the stand, and she wasn't obviously shown on video, but you could hear her words, and talked about what her life was like with the Rosenbaums and her sister. You know, Norman, we had an idea that she was going to be testifying. We just didn't know for sure. She gets on the stand. We couldn't take our eyes off the screen. What do you think the jury was thinking about that testimony?
They're amazed at how clear this witness is at a young age and how she's painting a very bright picture of what that household was like. She can tell what each person was doing. She could talk about her sister. She could talk about the Rosenbaums. You know, the question that I found most compelling is, what was Joseph doing?
Right.
She said nothing.
But is that, so let's talk about this. Spanking these girls as a form of discipline, him not doing anything, standing by, maybe as an active viewer, is that illegal? Is that fall into cruelty to children, assault, battery, any of those charges?
I mean, if he's witnessing a crime and he's not doing anything, he does have a responsibility. We're not talking about walking along the street and seeing something happen to a stranger,
right,
and you deciding what level of violence you can handle.
Right.
We're not talking about that.
So, look, we're waiting to jump back live. There's a debate going on about the line of questioning from the state, from the last witness. We'll talk about that in a second. In the meantime, let's go back to some nurses who had an opportunity to examine Millie's injuries. It was something to watch. Welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. Live in multiple courtrooms and hearings across the country right now. So as you see, we're waiting to jump back live into the Rosenbaum case. They just went for a sidebar. We'll tell you what's happening there. The Grant Amato case out of Florida is currently live, as well as the hearing being conducted for Robert Mueller over at the House Judiciary Committee. If you want to watch either Amato or the Mueller feeds, you can go to lawandcrime.com. Our focus is going to be on Rosenbaum. Now, some interesting things are happening here, Norman, in the Rosenbaum trial. We hear the testimony of Shelby Rawlings. Her husband was in the military with Jennifer. She's a defense witness, and she actually allowed her child to be babysat by Jennifer, and there were no issues there. Your thoughts, real quick, before we jump back live.
Defense is trying to establish that there's no pattern of abuse, no pattern of abusive behavior towards any children, and that, in fact, personal friends entrusted them with the care of their own child.
That's a big point. Let's jump back live and we'll hear what the state is going to cross-examine her about. Okay, so another sidebar. What they just asked her was, you were at Jen's house the day Layla died? No. No knowledge about the events leading up to Layla's death? No. So trying to say, what really is her role here? How much does she matter? It's the same argument to say, well, you know, this guy never murdered anybody in the past, so obviously he didn't murder somebody today.
Right, it's almost like character evidence
right
through the back door, in a way, in a sense, yeah.
Yeah, so it's how helpful is that? But with the other part, what, if I heard that correctly, is she was saying that, is it not possible that, you know, a child could be hurt by falling in gymnastics or something like that? And she said yes. So that's a big point as well.
Yeah, but I mean, she's not an expert in that regard, so, you know, her testimony isn't worth much.
I'm going to ask you again, I've asked a bunch of experts this who've been on the network. How important is it to have parents as the jury members?
In a case like this, it really doesn't matter. I mean, you would think that the defense would look to exclude parents, but you don't need to be a parent to have
Right.
a feeling of bias or predisposition towards the defendant.
My theory was, well, maybe they know they have small kids, or they did have small kids and know they have injuries. Let's just jump back live again. This is a witness for the state. All right, so the conclusion of that witness. Value, how much did that add?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot to the defense, but it helped. It didn't hurt.
What do you think the conversations are between Jennifer and Joseph as this trial goes on? I mean, we keep talking about how strange it is to see them represented by one attorney. They have conflicting interests. You've talked about it. What do you think their conversations are on a daily basis about this?
Uh-oh.
They realize that this might
We have
be
a
trouble.
problem. I'm sure that he's realizing that he should have had separate counsel. Because as the evidence unfolds, you have a clearer picture of what the state can prove and what they can't.
But shouldn't they have known that before trial? How much does the defense know what the prosecution's case is before going into a trial?
You know, you have a great idea of what's going to be shown, and he should have been advised to seek separate counsel. I'm sure that this attorney did have them both sign a waiver explaining that their rights could be in opposite to each other.
Because so much of this is about her, right? It's so much about her, but he's grouped in there as well. You're saying, would there have been a difference if you had a separate trial? She's tried first, and then there's a separate trial for him. It might feel different. It might have a different vibe.
Might have a different vibe for sure. If he had a separate trial, he would have a much better shot, I think, at beating a lot of the counts.
Well, the case is not over yet. The defense still putting on their witnesses. A new witness has just been called to the stand. Let's go live. Okay, on one hand, he observes happy girls, doesn't observe any abuse, but you might be saying he's just the male guy. I mean, really, what does he have to do with anything in this case? The other side of looking at it is, here's a guy who has no interest in this case. He is a random third party. He's not biased. He doesn't have anything directing his testimony. So it's important, interesting defense witness. We'll take a break. When we come back, we plan to jump live. Big day here on the network.